How do you know someone in business is about to hose you? They simply say, it's not personal, it's business.
This is the perfect RIA, in case you didn't know. Bringing you all the strategies to help your business grow. Are you happy? Are you satisfied? Are you hanging on the edge of your seat? Sit back and listen in while you feel the beat, yeah. Another myth bites the dust.
Today's podcast is brought to you by TPR Live. That's right, the Perfect RA. Micah and myself will be joining you live and in person in Phoenix, Arizona on September 25th, where we will be helping you with all things related to fees. How much to charge your clients, how to adjust your fees, how to explain fees to your prospects, and of course, the extreme accountability around how to make that actually happen. So go to theperfectria.com/live to get signed up and get all those important details. Alrighty, back to the show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Perfect RIA Podcast. I'm your host, Matthew Jarvis, and with me, as usual, the man, the myth, the legend, Micah Shalansky, coming to us live from Wasilla, Alaska. What was it, Micah? Negative 30 degrees Fahrenheit, not even Celsius negative, not that wimpy measurement, negative 30 below Fahrenheit.
That is correct. It's 30 below Fahrenheit. It's quite balmy outside. Definitely shorts weather for Alaskans. Yes, shorts weather. Yeah, that means you're outside shortly and then you come back inside. So there were several businesses. It was kind of fun. I was talking to another guy this other week and they just can't keep up with the heat. And so they were kind of shutting things down. So there's going to be, other issues that's there. But, really is kind of neat about Alaska because there's a lot of self-reliance, right? There's not help isn't right around the corner. There's a lot of self-reliance, a lot of community that's here. So it's also kind of a cool time that you see the community kind of stepping up and taking care of one another in times like this. But yes, it is a bit chilly outside.
Yeah. Well, no kidding. Whew. Speaking of being outside shortly and being forced into taking action, one of the things that we want to talk about today is almost the opposite of that. And this is a case where advisors, and Micah, you and I run into this all the time, where they're not forced to take action. Therefore, they continue to coast. Their practice continues to decline, even if top-line revenues are growing, because they're not forced to take action in this key area.
That's 100% the case. And this is something that I really think comes in, Jarvis, is that so often financial planners did not get into the practice. This is the same as doctors, actually.
Yes.
They didn't get into practice in order to start a business. They got in to help people. They got in because they love finance. They got in to add value to people's lives. And then lo and behold, they became a business owner. Now, if you're listening to this and saying, I'm not a business owner, I work for ABC and a W-2, you have the incorrect mindset. You are still a business owner. You have a smaller business, right? But you are very much in that same mindset. You should be in that same mindset as a business owner, I should say. And so we fell into this. And I find a lot of times, especially with advisors that we work with and coach, they are not thinking about things from a business perspective. Now, there's a couple of head trash things that we definitely need to address right away when I start saying, hey, put a business mindset. Advisors start putting their hands up and it's like, whoa, you know what? I'm not screwing my clients or blah, 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 blah. It's like, whoa, why did I say think of a business? You automatically thought screwing your clients. Like, why did you put those together? That's not what I'm talking about whatsoever. This is still table stakes. Delivering massive value is always a requirement in every decision we make.
Really is, right? And on that note, our practices evolve as well. And so when you're first starting out your practice, right, it makes sense. You have a low level of expertise. You have low level of experience. And so typically for most people, that means giving service to anyone and everyone, small dollar amounts, large dollar amounts, whatever you can find. As your practice evolves and as your practice improves and your service improves, it changes with whom you should be working. And again, this is not about screwing your clients or kicking people to the curb. It's about acknowledging I do my best work with this segment of people, this segment of clients. And while I can do other works, just like a doctor who's a cardiologist could also do knee surgery, I suppose, I stay in my lane. As advisors, the ones that are successful and the ones whose practice get to the next level, and again, Micah, you and I have seen this again and again, are the ones who understand their lane, who commit to staying in their lane, and then also understand, hey, the people exist, even though they're existing clients, even though they're people who paid my mortgage early on, they no longer fit in this lane. I am doing them a disservice by keeping them as a client. I'm not screwing them by giving them a different opportunity. I am doing a disservice by keeping them as a client.
Well, Jarson, this is where I got to push back on you a little bit, right? Because I had a ton of head trash around this, and I still initially do. And here's what the head trash is. It says, what do you mean I'm doing them a disservice? I am so much better than I ever was. And this other guy I'm going to refer him to is not nearly as good as I am. I'm a hell of a lot better as a financial advisor. So even though I may not be seeing them all the time, I'm so much better. I should still keep them on as a client. And if you just heard me say that, what should be popping in your head is, holy crap, this guy has a huge ego. And that would be correct. That would be the answer, right? It's your ego it was my ego that was really getting in the way from understanding what you were saying, is that I was the best advisor that could possibly be for these people. I wasn't willing to see that says, you know what? Now I've grown so much, I'm not providing the level of service I need to be providing to everyone. I got to bring in other people in order to facilitate that. Or sometimes I just outgrew certain clients and I wasn't a best advisor for what they were doing. And this doesn't have to do with the revenue side. This has to do with what they were doing, how they were planning, etc. Didn't line up with our core beliefs. And I need to be able to man enough and step up and say, no, this isn't in our core set of how we do financial planning. Let me find someone that's more in line with your beliefs and you need to work with them.
Now, I need to put a big warning in here, Micah, and this is where the Perfect RA podcast deviates dramatically from most everything else in the industry, because this is a point where some expert's going to come in and say, what we need to do is do segments, A, B, C, D. In fact, actually, it shouldn't be A, B, C, D, because that's disparaging. It should be like evergreen, spruce, and walnut or something. Like, you need to segment your clients. You need to offer different service levels to each client. You need to charge different fees to each client. And maybe that works in La La Land. Like maybe that works in the Eiffel Tower, the Emerald Tower, whatever that analogy is. But in our practices, Mike, in your practice and my practice, in the practices we've coached, that does not work. It does not work. So don't do it, right? And we've had these hard conversations, right? You and I have sat in rooms with our masterminds, with advisors we're coaching, saying, hey, you've got 200, 400, 700, 800 clients on the book. And let's be really honest, there's 200 of those 800 clients you haven't called in 3 years. So sure, maybe you are the smartest advisor in the room. Like, I'm just going to give you that. But you haven't called them in 3 years. You haven't called them. And really what they need help with is not some kind of advanced tax planning strategy. What they need help with is someone to call them from time to time and say, hey, don't forget to keep doing your Roth contributions.
Right. You know, Jarvis, as we kind of work through this, right, one of the things that comes up, and I remember being in a coaching session where in one of our masterminds, we brought in a coach and she goes, every single one of you segment your business. And everyone's kind of nodding their heads. Yes. I was like, no, I don't. I don't have a segment. She's like, yes, you do. Yeah, I guarantee you do. I said, great. What clients are in what segment? She's like, well, I don't know. I was like, well, then you don't have a damn clue, right? This is one thing that we just see so often from coaches. Now, a caveat I will throw, I do know one advisor in Colorado, Jim, and he does a really good job. He wants a high volume, low margin. So he charges really inexpensive fees.
Yep.
And when a client comes in and asks for something, he pulls out their agreement right there and says, all right, the services you get are A and B. It looks like you need C and D. This is going to be an upsell, and here's what we're going to charge us. And he has that fee service agreement in every single client meeting, and he just charges more a la carte for what the client needs. He is the only advisor I have ever met out of thousands of talking to advisors that actually does that. So he could pull off some segmenting because he has a system in place to do it. The rest of us don't. And so you got to 86 that whole concept of segmenting. Another way I think about segmenting is, who am I going to actually deliver value for, and who am I going to start delivering less and less value for? Now you justify it because you're like, oh, well, they don't pay as much the other clients do. Okay. Have you given them the opportunity? Have you told them they're only a B-level client? Yeah, it's going to go over really well, by the way. Told them they're a B-level client and they're going to have less services and they're going to get these less things in place. And when their heirs come in later and file a complaint because you said you were a financial planner, but you didn't check these other things, and I'm sure your complaint to the response to the judge and SEC is going to be really easy. You know, Your Honor, they're only paying $2,000 a year, so we didn't check their beneficiary designations. We only do that for clients paying north of $10,000 a year. I'm sure that'll go over just fine for you.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned beneficiaries. And again, for advisors listening, they're like, no, I've heard about this. You know, the airplane segments, there's first class and there's coach, and there's levels of coach. Yeah, there are industries where this can happen. This is not industry, right? And so let's use your beneficiary example, Micah. So for our A clients, which is the only clients we have, every about 2 years, we're doing a full beneficiary review, right? So then are you going to not, so you say, well, I have this client that doesn't pay me very much, I'm not going to review their beneficiaries. Micah, exactly to your point, during an audit, during a death, that's not going to hold up. And let's even remove that. Let's remove the external threat, right? This person feels that they're getting comprehensive financial advice. Like, in their mind, they're getting your best service, because why would they think otherwise, right? So they think, hey, man, Jarvis is looking out for me. He's our guy. We see his stuff. He's doing comprehensive financial planning. He hasn't called me in 4 years, but I'm sure he's got it under control, right? So we're doing those people a disservice. Mike, I'll throw in one other piece. Other than the guy you mentioned in Colorado, I have yet to meet an advisor, and I've met a lot of advisors who has a really successful practice who's doing these tiers of service. It just doesn't work. Now, someone's welcome to call me. I'd love to have you come to our mastermind. I'd love to see how you're doing it. Show me your bank statement first just to make sure we're on the same page. But for everyone else, you need one tier of clients. It's clients with whom you do your best work. And that's a line that, Micah, you and I always use. Hey, I insist on only doing my best work, and I do my best work when fill in the blank.
Jairus, when I was going through this, one of the things that my wife had brought up, which was really good, that says, I was struggling with this, do I keep clients? Do I graduate clients? Like, how does this work, et cetera? And she goes, well, just so you know that when, Sue is out and, Sue is not a high tiered client. When Sue is out, she's going to tell people about the services that you perform and that she's worked with you for years and that you don't do all of these things. So what type of reputation damage is that going to do because you're choosing not to do a best level of service for her? So, there's many ways that you can slice this. I can't find any positive way to slice this. So if you're caught up in this, it's more than likely an ego thing. And you got to step back and say, hey, where services the client the best? And if I am not servicing the client, I am not the best advisor for that client. I need to bring on somebody else, whether it's a junior, it's a whole different discussion, or you graduate them and they find a different advisor that's more appropriate for what they need.
Yeah, so at this point in this discussion, again, we have this discussion with advisors all the time. We're coaching lots of groups of advisors. There's kind of two reactions, Mike, at this point. One is, hey, that's not applicable to my practice. I don't have any clients like that. I only have as A-level clients. Or this visceral, I cannot do that. And I don't want to try to debunk either of those right now. What we do then is we step back and we say, great, let's get a list of all your clients. Feel free to remove the names, especially if you're sharing them with somebody. Let's all your clients, anybody who's your name or your broker number, or whatever is associated with, a list of all of them, a list of what revenue they're generating. And if they're doing any kind of commission business, you can average that out. And then whatever their net worth is or their assets under management, whatever thing you want to factor, let's take their names off and let's really look and let's start running some 80-20 rules, right? Let's look at who's really running your entire practice and who is getting a free ride. This is a really eye-opening. I think, Micah, correct me if you've experienced otherwise. I've not ever done this with an advisor and not had it blow their mind, absolutely blow their mind wide open. Because in our minds, we think, 100 clients, $1 million a year in revenue. Okay, they're each paying $10,000 a year, except that 10 of them are paying $40,000 a year, 40 of them are paying zero, and it's this whole range in between.
Well, Jairus, you and I know we talked about the podcast. There's a $1 billion firm I was working with, and they're like, nah, that's not the case. I was like, sweet, let's run it.
Yeah.
And we did a screen share and pulled up their stuff and, formatted some stuff in Excel and just, him and the office manager that kind of runs everything were just silent, just blown away. And I'm like, so here's what the numbers are. I was like, these are your numbers. I didn't create them. I just formatted them.
Yep.
Is this correct? And it was the exact same thing with their practice. So thinking that if you haven't gone through this exercise, right, it is ignorant to think that this doesn't apply to you. So this red, yellow, green is super, super important. And again, this is an informational thing. This doesn't mean you have to take action, but this is an informational. So Jairus, do you want to run through real quick how we set up red, yellow, green kind of levels?
Yeah, so the best way to do this, and again, we do this in person with advisors all the time, is first we need to take a small step back and say, what does your ideal practice look like, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you say, hey, I want to, let's just use these numbers. I want to gross $1 million a year and I want to have 200 clients. Okay, so quick math, that's $5,000 needs to be our average client revenue. We should do some quick things. So this now sets some benchmarks, right? So great, we can say, all right, anybody who's below 5,000 is not driving us to our ideal client. In fact, the math tells you that 5,000 has to be the average. That's really not how it works in real life. 5,000 now needs to be your minimum. Like, Micah, you're laughing here because that's the truth, right? You're like,
yes.
Well, 5,000 can be my average and the standard deviation and blah, 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 blah. If you say I want 200 clients and $1 million of revenue, your minimum has to be $5,000 a year in revenue.
Yes.
Which means that people that fall materially below that are not a good fit for your practice. And Micah, this is something I learned from you. Before you and I had met, I had always just gone with the default, graduate those people.
Mm-hmm.
If you're below the new minimum, you get graduated. And I introduce them to other advisors. I make that as smooth as possible. But you have found a better way to do that. You have this upgrade opportunity, upgrade or graduate.
Yeah. So as one of the things is I want to give my clients the opportunity to be clients, right? And so I brought on clients before that only have, 400,000 in AUM, and that other advisors are like, what the heck, Micah? Shouldn't you have like this $1 million minimum? Isn't that like a requirement? It's like, no, it's not an AUM requirement. It's a revenue requirement.
Yeah.
So with clients that come in that fit my 3 Ps, personal, productive, and profitable, right? They fit the first 2 Ps and kind of that third P. Well, then it's the aspect of giving them the opportunity of saying, hey, the fee for you is going to be a little bit more because it's going to be a minimum minimum of X dollar amount. So maybe we start with a 2% fee and a $5,000 financial planning on top of that. Well, then all of a sudden, a $500,000 client becomes a $15,000 a year in revenue that's there, which is now hitting our minimums. Now, this is the client's choice, whether they wish to do it or not, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of our clients are like, yeah, this makes a ton of sense. We would love to do this. Well, fantastic. Here's our process and here's what we're going to do. One of the things my dad told me a long, long time ago, Jarvis,
Yeah.
do not get in your client's pocket.
It's brilliant.
Right? That's budgeting decisions. Where are they spending their money? That's fee decisions, right? Do not get in your client's pocket. It's your job to show the value that you're going to provide, right? And then I have to look at this and say, hey, is this enough for providing enough value for the fee that I'm asking for? That's my job.
Sure.
It's the client's job to decide if they wish to pay that. That's not my job. I'm not getting in their pocketbook. Here's the minimum. So let's say your minimum is $5,000 in revenue, $8,000 in revenue, whatever that's going to be. Fantastic. Well, instead of charging 1%, charge 1.5%, charge 1.75. That means, again, the first two P's, personal and productive. How do we make the profitable work? The way we make profitable work is not by lowering the minimum dollar amount. It's by changing the fee structure so they make the minimum dollar amount. And we just have a great conversation with the client about that. And it's their choice to opt in.
Yeah, it really is, right? Give them that opportunity, but explain it with confidence. Do not, quick warning here, do not ever raise fees hoping that someone is going to leave. So there are clients, right?
That client won't work.
Because I promise you, they'll be like, yeah, sure, I'll pay more. Now you got to go back and I just agreed to pay your fee and now you're graduating. No. So when we're looking at that list, we also need to look, if there's any what we call PITAs, or I like to call them imposter clients, people pretending to be clients, those people need to be graduated. But Micah, you're right. Otherwise, give them the opportunity to upgrade and don't make that assumption. I've had cases where Bob and Sue, and again, for those new listeners, we call everyone Bob and Sue. Bob and Sue, they're not going to agree to this new fee level. Let them decide that. Bob and Sue, great news. As our firm evolves, as the demand for our services increases, we've adjusted how we charge clients. Going forward, our new fee is X. Want to make sure that makes sense to you. And they either say, yeah, it does make sense. Let's keep going. Or they say, yeah, it doesn't really make sense. Okay, great news. Got another advisor down the street, much less expensive. I don't think he's quite as good as us, right? But he's really good. Glad to make that introduction. So there's always, I can't lose in this situation.
Yeah. And so this is the one that you got to start with. Charles, I'm glad you brought that up. You got to start with the graduation list first, right? Because that is harder. And then you got to look at the upgrade list that's going to be there. So, but the graduation list isn't just a money thing. It's the PITA thing. It's the imposter clients. I love that terminology, imposter clients. It's that, hey, they don't really fit our 3 Ps. And sometimes on the 3 Ps, the personables, how do they interact with the team? Some clients are just more difficult to deal with. This is like, okay, is this a communication style difference between maybe a client and a team member?
Sure.
You know what? I tell my team members, get over it. We need to be more adaptive and work with clients with different communication style. Or is the client being rude, right? This is different. If a client's being rude, that's when I'm going to step in and we're going to have a conversation with the client and to make sure we free up that communication, right? It says if you're upset, no problem. You bring those to me. You don't take things out on my staff. I don't care what's happening in your personal life. Very, very rare that ever comes up. Most of the time, it's a communication thing. But if a client is being rude on the team side to the team, well, then they got to go. They're an imposter client. They don't fit our mix. Just like I wouldn't sit in a meeting with somebody that I couldn't stand being around, right? I would graduate them. I don't want to put my team in that same position either.
Micah, when we are going through these red, yellow, green lists with clients, everyone, without exception, you and me included, gets nauseous around this. We look and say, hey, yeah, there's this 100 clients and combined, they only generate $12 revenue. I still need that $12 or I cannot give up that $12 revenue. Or we have this yellow section where we say, hey, listen, these guys need to be upgraded. I can't dare go to them and ask them to pay more.
Well, Jarvis, they don't take any time. It's just free revenue that's coming in. It's pure profit. They don't take any time whatsoever. So getting rid of them doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. This is the head trash we all run into.
Yes.
And we're all convinced that our practice is going to take a huge step backwards, that we're going to see a huge reduction in revenue, that all of our green clients are going to hear about what terrible people we are, and they're going to leave as well, right? Have you ever seen an advisor's practice after we did even enormous cuts 12 months later be in a worse spot? Ever?
Now, as the advisor, again, I was just about to be ill. Is it really challenging to go through? Is it emotional? Yes. It's called work. It's hard, right? Being successful is hard. That's just it. But again, on the other side of this, and we have the benefit of not only going through this personally, but being on the other side of it personally, seeing advisors start it, go through it, and get on the other side of it. Everyone on the other side says, thank you. I am so glad we did this. And it's not just a revenue side. Yes, this is an important piece of it because if you don't have money, you're going out of business. Surprise. That's how math works. Government should figure it out. Anyways, so this is really, really important for us to know. But this is also the emotional side about how are you designing your lifestyle practice. I was talking to an advisor the other day. and his children are changing just with their age, right? I said, hey,
Sure.
make sure you don't get, this is something that happened to me too often, is I got too locked into what my lifestyle was and was too rigid in that. And I was like, no. As the kids change, as the family changes, I need to be more adaptive in my lifestyle because my practice needs to work for my lifestyle and vice versa. So this is also that question at the same time. If I have 800 clients, I am never servicing them, right? And for me, that weighs on me, Jarvis, right? Like, how the heck are my names on all of these? As it should.
Totally. You know, Micah, you and I have worked with a lot of advisors, right? Our own practices, and we have a really good track record of getting advisors to double their revenue while getting more time in their life in about a 36-month period. That's a pretty good track record. In fact, I heard from an advisor just this week, he had done this exercise, red, yellow, green. He had done this upgrade or graduate, and it had taken his revenue from about $450,000 to about $670,000. So about a $220,000 increase from this exercise. But what we run into, and this guy just said, great, I'm going to go for it, is we always tell ourselves, I'll do that when. I'll do surge when I get to this level. I'll graduate clients when. And you will not get there.
Yes.
You will not get there. Or if you do, you'll burn your family down along the way because you'll be working so many hours carrying so much stress. So there's this illusion, all later is today.
Well, and the reason that's the benchmark keeps moving, right? The goalpost keeps moving. And so later never comes. These are things that we got to make a plan for. Now, one thing I am a pretty big proponent of is do these one step at a time. So example, like if you're implementing Surge, I wouldn't necessarily do the red, yellow, green upgrade. I wouldn't necessarily do 6 value adds at once, right? I would stage these over a period of time, which is why we see the 36 months, right? We really like that as a sequence because it's not overwhelming. I have done multiple of these things at once. It drives a lot of pain at the household, drives a lot of pain at the office, and I don't think was great for clients. It was a good learning experience for me. So these are things that, but again, you got to have dates. When are you getting these done? You also got to bring your team on board. I know we talk about this a lot, but this would be worth bringing on here too. And if you just present this with your team that says, hey, I'm just raising fees, the team is going to look at it, says, well, you just want more money.
Yeah.
Why are we finding this client just because you want more money? Whether you think that or not, some team member is going to have that. So we need to have a discussion with the team on how we position this. So Jarvis, how do you position that with your team?
Yeah, boy, Mike, I'm glad you would bring this up. You need to position it really the same way you would position it to a client, right? It's actually a good time to practice. How are you going to explain this to a client, right? As our services have improved, as the demand has improved, like I'm giving the exact same explanation to my team before I'm giving it to clients. I'm explaining why we're going to do this, what it's going to mean for the team, how it protects our firm during downturns, why this profitability is helpful, how we compare to other firms. Right. So I'm saying, hey, listen, nobody else is doing value adds. Nobody else is doing beneficiary reviews. No one else is doing surgery. Like I go through with the team, look at all these things that we're doing because they think that's just normal. In fact, sometimes it's good, by the way, to send your team to an industry conference to see what a clown show most of the industry is because they just think this must be what everyone's doing.
Yes.
So we highlight all the value, same thing that we do with a prospect or a client. And then we say, great. And because of that, here's our new fee schedule. Because of that, here's our new fee schedule. Tell me what questions, concerns you have. Tell me what questions and concerns you think clients might have. And we work through all of that together.
Yeah, it's really, really important, right? To get your team on board with these changes. That's something the reason I bring it up so much, this is something I continually miss, right? I'm like, well, I thought about it. Clearly my team should know about this. Yeah, it's actually not how it works. They can't read my mind. So, we got to effectively communicate these things with our team members, how we're rolling it out and get them on board with it. While they may not have to deal directly with client objections, they should be seeing that vision of the firm as well.
Mike, I want to highlight one last thing before we transition to action items, which is this is a very difficult exercise to do on your own. It's just like we tell clients, it's impossible to be objective about your own money. It's nearly impossible to be objective about your own practice. Can it be done? Yeah, you can, but not as well, right, Micah? You and I had each done this exercise independently several times on our own, but it wasn't until we sat down. Like we thought when we sat down, they're like, oh yeah, I've cut this thing down. There's no wrong fit clients here. There's no one, right? We had these discussions, right? There's no one that needs to be upgraded. My practice is, and then it's like, wait a second. Just like you mentioned this $1 billion firm who's a good friend of ours. Oh yeah, I'm at $1 billion. I'm doing millions of dollars. I'm sure everybody's, well, let's just take a look. And when someone else looks, it's that the splinter and the plank thing, right? Like, oh, my practice is fine, but yours is a mess.
Oh, I was going to say, I was just going to pick on Jarvis just for a second. Like when I did it with yours, because I remember this, it was like, okay, it was, because we're allowed 5 exceptions per 100 clients.
Yep.
And so we're like, okay, well, this is in Jarvis, like this is exception because I said, okay, 1 exception used and going down. And you could just like the intensity of Jarvis was like getting really nervous as we start. Okay, next one, 2, of the exceptions used. That means you only have 3 left. Yeah, exactly.
There's still 200 people left. Yeah.
And by the way, that was the same on the other side around, right? So this is definitely something to bring somebody in with, to have them look at it, to call you out on your own BS. That's why, you know what, I always encourage other financial advisors to have somebody else review your financial plan. Do you actually have one? Good question. You probably don't, but you're telling clients to get one. What's your plan? You need somebody else to look at this. The same thing with these type of things, red, yellow, green reports. They get super challenging. We look at them with rose-colored glasses. It's great to have that objective perspective, somebody else to come in.
Yeah, and this is where I think, and not everybody has this opportunity. I find it's best when it's someone who's also been down this path, right? When Micah, when you and I sat down and we were teasing about the 5 exceptions, a true story, not a joke. When it's coming from a peer who's saying like, hey, I've done this and I wanted to throw up and I thought it was going to ruin my practice and I came out the other side a better person, a better advisor. That is so much more productive than someone who's saying, hey, you need to call your clients emerald, purple, green, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. All right, Jarvis, this podcast is all about action items. So let's go ahead and transition to action items. And I'm going to start it off and I'm going to say kind of the number one thing is, especially, where we're at in the year. If you haven't done it already, you can either take the last quarter billing, you can take 2023 year end.
Sure.
Don't care which way you do it. Personally, for me, I take the last quarter billing. That's how I run it.
Yep.
Is I would list all the revenue. I would then get all the households. I would hide all the household names and I would have revenue, AUM, and potentially net worth. If you don't have one of those things, if you don't have net worth, this is not an excuse not to do it. Drop net worth off the list. It doesn't matter.
Sure. Yep.
Move on to what information you have. And then I would have that conditional formatting in there that says, great, here's my minimum revenue, right? Here's my ideal revenue. Here's my minimum revenue. And I'd have it color code the sheet automatically. So I don't have to go through and make individual decisions on all 200 clients.
After you've done that, action number 2, this needs to be 2024 needs to be the year of upgrade or graduate, right? There are people that are not getting your best service. They're not paying appropriate fees. They're not meeting the 3 Ps. This is the year of upgrade or graduate. Give them that chance to upgrade. And then if they don't upgrade, if they're not a good fit, if they don't meet the 3 Ps, it's time to graduate. Someday is never. Needs to be this year. Has to happen this year.
I love it. Again, our goal with TPR is to transform the industry. We've already done it in so many ways with being more effective. Again, this is about running a business, and a business is about people. It's about heartbeats at the end of the day. It's this crap that's not personal that just pisses me off. It is absolutely personal that we do that, but we got to be setting this up so you're servicing the best people. And the best way that you can do this right now is give us 5 stars on the podcast. Share this information out. We want to blow up the industry with this great information, and we cannot do it without your help.
Well, Micah, thank you so much. And to all of our listeners, until next time, happy planning.
Happy planning.
Hey, before you leave, a quick word from our sponsors. Hey, everybody, I want you to take a quick look around your office, and on your desk, there should be the Retirement Tax Services Desktop Tax Guide. And if it's not there, or if it's not current, meaning you didn't download it in the last month, go to retirementtaxservices.com and download the Desktop Tax Guide. This is a must-have resource for every financial advisor committed to tax planning.
This isn't tax, legal, or investment advice. That isn't our intent. Information designed to change lives. Financial planning can make you thrive. Start today, don't think twice. Be a better husband, father, mother, and wife. The perfect RIA, the perfect